There, hello. Oops. Ayan. Think I'm live na. Narinig mo na ako? Okay. Hello, mic test. Hello? Hello? Mic test. Hello? Mic test. Hello? Hello? Oops, medyo noise. Medyo windy lang yun. Hello?
All right, so guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we're on our 14th online Saturday session, and it's amazing that we have invited a lot of tech practitioners so far. So that's amazing. And for everyone who's watching us right now, please, please, please share and like the video as well so that we can reach as many people as we can. There's so much value in this. Our topic for today is redefining reality, deciding experiences for VR and AR. Yeah. And you can use the comment section, if you have any question about today's session, and then we'll try our best to answer everything. Um, Toph will definitely try to answer all of that at the end of the session or while we're doing the sessions. And please, again, share the video, do a watch party if you can with your groups. And additionally, since this is our last session for the month of July, for all those who've registered to our past events, we will send you like a summary of all the past events, so that you can easily find the topics that you're interested to learn, and that will redirect you to our YouTube channel. So, talking about our YouTube channel, guys, it's it's a great channel. We try to put as many content there. So if you can also follow or subscribe to the YouTube channel, so that you can watch our past online Saturday sessions, and we will try our best to do uh, to 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 find a speaker for your topic suggestions. So as you remember, for those who registered to the event, we ask you what technology you want to learn in the future. So definitely, if you do have, if we could find a speaker who's willing to share, and I think there's a lot of people who are willing to share, we will let you know as soon as possible. So, for example, for this talk, a lot of people are asking about what software they can use to start developing games. So definitely, we will find someone who can talk about that. Just to give an introduction. And also, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you guys that we have confirmed events now for next week. So we will start with introduction to Angular.js. So that's with Stephen Venuya on July 3. That session will start at 7:30 p.m. So again, that's July 3, 7:30 p.m. Introduction to Angular.js with Stephen Venuya. And on July 4, we have Introduction to Product Design with Pierce Jonota. That's July 4, 6:30 p.m. And Game Your Design with Toby Abad, Creative Director of Tactile Studios, as part of our Further into Design session, July 4, 1 p.m. So it's going to be very early, but that's going to be very informative for everyone. So please, please like the page and keep checking our page for updates. And then once you have the video available, please click on Get Reminder so that once we go live, you'll instantly be notified. Now we're ready for you. And lastly, we also have Marielle Mosquirola, product design mindset. She's the product designer at Grab, and that's on July 11th. The session will start at 5 p.m. All right, so there. So hi, Tough. How are you?
Hi, Luis. So I'm doing good. So thanks for inviting me for the session.
Yeah, sorry kanina kasi nagsasalita ako, naka-mute pala ako. I didn't realize. Ang haba na ng
Okay.
sinabi ko. Tapos sinabihan pa kita na baka ikaw yung naka-mute. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, Toph, thank you so much for doing the session tonight. And also for all the members of VRPH who are watching us, please like and share the video as well so that we can get as many people in. And also, if you have any question, just use the comment section. Toph will definitely try to answer all the questions by the end of the session. And VRPH. So join VRPH. So we actually have the video shared there. So you can just reshare that para makita din ng mga friends nyo. All right. So, yeah.
Mhm.
So, Toph,
Okay.
I have a question for you pala.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, what are the upcoming events for VRPH before we start?
Okay. So right now, actually medyo medyo matagal kami nawalan ng event. So actually yung last event namin yung yung virtual meetup. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely hindi kami masyado nakapag-conduct ng events during the quarantine, but actually hopefully this July meron kaming in plans na event. So will announce pa lang like yung details ng events and yung mga dates, pero hopefully matuloy na this July kasi medyo matagal kaming natigil sa pag-events. Yan, so
Yeah.
and hopefully hopeful to connect more again sa community within next month.
Yeah, definitely. So, guys, keep checking or if you haven't liked the page or the group VRPH, VR Philippines, and then that's a very supportive community based on my experience. A very collaborative, very supportive community for people who are into VR design, game design in general, and I've seen how they collaborate with each other when they were in our office before sa Hack Reality event. So yeah, it's really amazing to see a lot of young people trying new technology. So today, Topher will talk about AR, not only VR but also AR, right, Toph?
Uh, so
Yeah.
general introduction lang about both technologies.
Okay. Yeah, great. Sounds great. So, guys, without further ado, let me give you Christopher David, co-founder and CTO of Veer Immersive Technologies.
So hey everyone. So am I sharing my screen?
Ah, wait, for a
Is
moment.
my screen visible?
Yan, tada.
And so okay, so I'm Toff. You can just call me Toff. I'm a virtual reality and augmented reality designer, developer, and evangelist. So basically create immersive experiences. If you want to learn more about me, you can actually check my new website. So I got on to last month. So you can see some of the works I've done here, which I'll be also discussing in a bit in more detail. But you can check out here if you want to connect. Then you can see my details here. And so it's stuff of the world. So promote ko lang kasi I just made this. So let's go to the topic. Uh so redefining reality. So this session will mostly be an introduction to immersive technologies, virtual reality and augmented reality. Um, what's the outline of the session? So first, we're gonna be having an introduction to virtual reality and augmented reality. So, very basic lang to. So if you're experienced in VR, AR, there might not be any new stuff you get in here. More intended to to the layman that's just getting into or interested in getting into virtual reality and augmented reality. So, basic definitions. So general applications like hardware, like what hardware can you get for VR, AR, and content creation. And then I'm also gonna run through some uses of VR, AR for enterprise, and hopefully at the end we still have time for a quick demo on how to develop a VR app in 20 minutes. So I'm sure I can keep it less than 20 minutes. And so let's start with just introduction of VR. So just the general overview of what VR AR is. But before I define what virtual reality and augmented reality, I actually always want to define first the pinaka root word of virtual reality and augmented reality, which is reality. Because VR are their technologies that really redefine our perception or our view of reality. So what is reality? How do we define reality? So according to Morpheus from the Matrix, real, or what we consider as reality, is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. So what we consider as reality, or what we perceive as reality, is actually electrical signals that are interpreted by our brain. So it's our brain's perception of reality as processed as it processes the electrical signals that goes through our senses. So these are our primary senses, and of course, what we consider as reality is our brain's interpretation of our surrounding through our senses. So we use our senses to perceive our environment, and our brain interprets its own version of reality, basically. So anong connect nito? So basically, with technology kasi we can stimulate our senses and change our brain's perception of reality. So this is a cool thing about immersive technologies because we can stimulate our senses and change our brain's perception of reality. And there are two major categories for this kinds of technology. First is virtual reality or VR, which immerses the users in a fully digital environment. So with VR, it completely completely replaces all of the electrical signals that you sense. So you feel like you're in a fully digital environment. And there's the other thing, the augmented reality or AR. It overlays virtual objects on the real world environment. So with AR, it's only augmented, or it's only overlaid. So it's not it doesn't fully replace your sense or your perception of reality, but it only adds, or it uh basically it changes your view of reality by just adding virtual elements. And so both these things, virtual reality and augmented reality, they fall between what we call the immersive technology spectrum. So if you can see the spectrum, so if you look at the far left, that's completely physical, and on the far right, that's completely digital. So on the far left, completely physical, of course, that's our real reality, or how our untampered or unchanged reality is as we perceive through our brain. While virtual reality is on the far right, which means that with VR, the goal is to completely replace our senses by digital information. So that's virtual reality. While augmented reality, as I said, is somewhere in the middle. So we're still in the physical world, we're still in the physical environment, but it's overlaid by digital information. So this could be digital. This could be data such as like text or 3D models, or like characters or 3D objects. So basically anything that is digital augmented into our added into our perception of the world, that is augmented reality. So it's not really zero or one, or it's really more of a spectrum, kaya ginawang spectrum. Kasi AR is not just specifically in this middle, so it's somewhere between there. So anywhere between that. So ano pa yung mga ibang terms? Kasi yun, yung medyo nakakagulo na sa VR, sa immersive technologies, like ang daming mga buzzwords na yung iba is, some of them just marketing terms, pero let's define them na rin. So you might also heard of the term MR or mixed reality. So honestly, ito, some companies have different definitions of this term, but for me, I just consider it as and so mix of the real and the virtual. So it's also just the same actually as augmented reality. So different companies just want to define it as different. Kasi pag sinabi augmented reality, most people think of the AR sa phone. So they prefer to use the term mixed reality to denote yung mga mas higher end na augmented reality devices. Pero technically speaking, it's just the same kasi nga mixed reality. It mixes the real and the physical. So it mixes the physical and the digital. So mixed reality is also anywhere in between. So it's just the same as augmented reality. So the next term is what we call XR. So this is also a common buzzword. So XR means extended reality. So it's just an umbrella term for all immersive technologies. So when I say XR, it means both VR and AR. So when I say XR, it's just a combination of all these technologies that changes our perception of reality. And so, most people are already familiar with this, but this is the most common form factors of immersive headsets. So, and they come in the form of what we call head-mounted displays. So with VR, you might be familiar with itong mga headsets na sinusot natin that completely covers your face. So with VR kasi, the goal nga is to completely replace your view. So that's why it mostly comes in the form of a head-mounted display with LED screens inside, so it can completely replace your view of reality. While augmented reality, it's usually a translucent glass, which displays or adds information to that display using a built-in computer. So right now, VR and AR looks completely different, and in terms of technology, there are a lot of things that make them different. But if you look at the spectrum, as I said earlier, it's really it's really not uh, it's really just a spectrum. It's really everything about VR and AR is just anywhere between this line. So right now they're completely separate technologies uh, because of the limitation of technologies. But in the future, it's going to be converging into just one technology really. So it's only separate now, but really the end game for both VR and AR is just to be one piece of technology. So in the future, we're just gonna have one headset that can switch between VR and AR. Kasi nga, it's just a spectrum basically. So, but right now, since the technology to make them is different, we have different categories. So we have this VR and AR headsets. And right now we have different applications. So and so these are the common VR headsets. So usually, and yeah, usually you can, if you try this, you can really be immersed into the experience. So usually, if you look at this example, this is the HTC Vive. So with this, you can actually interact them with the environment, and so you can be immersed, so immersed inside the environment that you can really feel like your brain really plays tricks on you, and really can really trick your brain into thinking that what the environment you're in is really real. And while augmented reality is more on still being in a physical world, but having this digital characters and digital information overlaid on top of your view. So this video is from Pokemon Go, but obviously that's not how that game ended up. So that's why I don't really consider Pokemon Go as augmented reality. So people call Pokemon Go augmented reality, but it's really not. So it's more of a pseudo augmented reality, because it doesn't really augment your reality. It just augments your phone screen. And so next, so what do people use XR for? So again, if I use that term XR, I just mean both VR and AR. So parang shorthand lang na notation. So there are two primary categories of XR. So of course, first, nandiyan yung pinaka common, uh, yung games and entertainment. Oops. And so especially with VR, like majority of the use case of VR right now is mostly for games, because with games kasi we've always wanted to experience being in a different environment, being someone else, and doing experiences or things that we couldn't otherwise do in real life. So talagang using VR, games are really on a different level. So there's a lot of really amazing games on VR if you've tried it. So aside from games, of course, entertainment, there's a lot of 360 videos and even interactive VR movies that are already available in virtual reality. And so it's really gonna change our lifestyle then. So there's a lot of applications then that really improves our lifestyle, especially with AR. So more on that later. So the next category of AR, VR and AR apps goes into the productivity realm. Uh, so not just for games and entertainment, but how we can actually use VR and AR for productivity uses. So some of the main categories, actually gonna go more into detail on this later, so I have a separate presentation on this. So there's training, collaboration, visualization, retail, and marketing. So those are some of the most common use cases for VR and AR uh, for productivity. And so what's the major difference between VR and AR? So with VR, it's a completely simulated environment. So if the goal is full immersion, it's usually in virtual reality that you can get that. And with VR, right now, VR headsets right now have a very precise controllers. So the tracking of most VR headsets are really amazing. So you could get precise interactions with VR, especially if yung for applications such as like training na that kung saan important yung precise interactions. So then there's augmented reality. So with augmented reality, of course, what's great about it is adding context to existing objects or surrounding. So if yung application demands for still using or still utilizing the real world and just context or existing uh, adding context to existing objects or surrounding, that's the strength of augmented reality. And so let's go to hardware. And so actually, VR and AR are very hardware dependent, of course. And right now, it's still not that accessible for a lot of people. So they're really still a bit expensive, which it's looking positive naman kasi hardware are most of the common hardware are going down and down in price and getting better in the last few years. So just some of the categories of VR hardware. So first, the most common is mobile VR. So I think this is the kind of VR that a lot more people has experience in. So especially with the Google Cardboard and Samsung Gear VR, where you can just use your phone and put it in a headset or a VR enclosure, and you can use it. So that's the most accessible form of VR, but there's really a lot of limitations with that. So first of all, there's not a lot of interactions, but because it's mostly just viewing, and you're limited to 360 degrees viewing, and you can't really move around. So these are them. So actually, most of them are obsolete now. So actually, I think just this year or last year, Samsung Gear VR is also already dropped by Oculus and by Samsung. So Google Cardboard also no longer has official support, but still is being used a lot by uh, prototypers because especially if you don't have a lot of budget, this really the best way to get into VR because you can with Google Cardboard you can use any kind of phone and just put it in this piece of cardboard and you can get an introductory experience for virtual reality. And there's the Oculus Go, which also like I think just yesterday that Oculus announced that they will also be dropping support for. So yeah, so basically the trend recently is these are some of the most accessible forms of VR, and since it's a bit limited and medyo it's stopping the progress of evolution of VR. They're becoming more obsolete now. So there's becoming fewer and fewer options really for accessible form of VR. But and that's the Oculus Go. But that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. So bad thing because of course it's going to be less accessible. There's fewer official devices that are supported. But then again, I think in the long term, that's also going to be good because companies are now focusing more on the room scale virtual reality headsets, and because mobile virtual reality headsets really are limited in terms of what can be accomplished or like showing the full potential of VR. So, and so with most mobile devices or mobile VR, it's only 3 degrees of freedoms, which means that you can just have pitch, yaw, and roll, or just rotate your head basically. But with most headsets, modern headsets, there's 6 degrees of freedom, which means you can also move around. And so these are the most common virtual reality headsets. So hindi na masyado updated tong slides ko. So there are a lot more better options here. So this is the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift. So they're what we call PC based virtual reality headsets. So in order to use this, you still need a computer to run. But and so it's this the least accessible option because you really need a PC that's VR ready. So it doesn't really come cheap, and some of these headsets are also more expensive compared to the more mobile ones. And so right now, the best option I recommend to everyone is actually the Oculus Quest. So what's great about the Oculus Quest is it's already what we call a standalone VR device. So there's no wires, there's no mobile phone, there's no PC. You can just use this headset as it is. So everything is built in, and it has its own library. So you could actually bring it anywhere and use VR. So this is really the future of VR. And one great feature that they added like late last year, I think, or earlier this year, is the ability to also use it as a PC-based VR headset. So what's great about this is there's two ways now that you can use the Oculus Quest. You can use it as a mobile VR headset, as a portable VR headset, but you can also use it as a PC-based virtual reality headset, which gives you a lot of options. So if you're getting started in VR and thinking of purchasing your first headset, so there's really no other better option than the Oculus Quest. And so now let's go to content creation for VR. So wait, oops. Yeah, checking lang. Okay. So let's now go to content creation for VR. So how do we create content for VR or for virtual reality? So basically, there's two kinds of content for VR, or there's two ways of creating content for VR. First is by capturing the real world, and the next is by recreating the real world. So the next one is obviously the more flexible one, but I'm gonna cover both real quick. So first, what do we mean by capturing the real world? So basically, how do we create content for virtual reality where you can just capture the real world and have it be experienced by anyone anywhere they are in the world? So let's say you want to capture an event or an environment. How do you capture that scene and have someone experience that in your VR headset? So uh, one of the most common methods is basically 360 photography. So it's basically a spherical panorama that captures a location and a multiple angles in a fixed point. So basically 360 photos. So I think these are mostly common, especially sa Facebook. So there's the option na kasi to add 360 photos there. So and you can also use your phone to just take 360 photos using your smartphone. So if you don't have any development experience, this is actually the quickest way of creating experiences in for VR or just recreating your environment in VR. So by just creating simple 360 photos. So after taking 360 photo, you can already load them in your VR headset and experience in the 360 photo. You can also use it on Facebook. So that's the most basic form of VR content. And there's a lot of aside from phone, of course, there's a lot of dedicated 360 cameras na rin that you can use to create 360 content. And aside from photos, of course, there's also 360 videos. So they're also supported by Facebook and YouTube. So there's also dedicated cameras for those. So I'm not gonna focus much on this because these are really the most basic kinds of content. So and so what are the difference between 360 video? So 360 photos and video, while they're great, they're really not full VR. So they're just the type of content that you can experience in VR, but they're not really full VR. So just as a visualization, if you look above, that's what a 360 video is. Basically, a 360 photo or video is just a photo that is wrapped around you. So you can look around and see the environment, but it's not really VR. It's not really as immersive at full VR. So if you look at the one on the bottom, full VR is where you can actually go around and interact with the environment. So that's what we mean by full VR, as opposed to just 360-degree content. Okay, so I'm gonna skip some of the use the stuff. So another option is photogrammetry. So I'm not gonna focus much on this then. Uh, and so this is a bit more complicated method now of capturing the real world. But basically, there's this technique called photogrammetry, where you can take thousands or hundreds or thousands of photos and recreate a 3D model based on the environments. So they're really a great way then to capture and create 3D content for VR. So but with photogrammetry, those are still fixed models. So there's also this technique called volumetric video. There's really not a lot of examples of this right now, because right now this is really resource consuming on your hard drive. But there's an option to capture environments, to capture people in VR and in 3D. And so and so that's just another technique of recreate or capturing reality or capturing the real world for consumption in VR. And so now let's go to recreating the real world. So obviously, these are some great techniques if you want to basically just capture the real world and uh, experience them in VR. But of course, the most common experiences in VR are, of course, custom experiences and uh, custom experiences, of course. So how do you create experiences for VR? So that's what we're gonna actually demo later then. So uh, and so sige, let's skip na muna. So one of the most common ways of creating content for VR is using a game engine. So there are software development tools used to create real-time interactive 3D applications. So they're called game engines because they're also the same software used to make games, but with a lot more, with more and more VR applications being developed using game engines, their applications have really extended and got more flexible to include in enterprise applications and not just games. So there's two major game engines available. So there's Unity and there's Unreal Engine. So Unity, for the demo later, we're gonna be using Unity. So Unity is the most commonly used game engine in the world. So if you're just a beginner, Unity is actually the easiest one to get into. So it has a lot more support. It has a lot more. It has, I think, a bigger community, and there's also a lot more free assets available that can help you create prototypes. And so that's the end of the introduction part. So how much time have we left? Okay, so next I'm just gonna be going through enterprise applications for VR. And so immersive technology for enterprise. And so I wasn't able to introduce them pala kanina. So basically, my company is called Veer Immersive Technologies. So we mostly develop virtual reality and augmented reality apps to be used for enterprise. So that's the primary focus of us on how we can use VR and AR for companies and for productivity purposes. So ito yung pinakita ko rin kanina. So basically, these are the primary use cases for enterprise ng VR and AR. So first, there's training, collaboration, visualization, retail, and marketing. So I'm just gonna be going quick on each one of this and show some examples na ginawa namin on how we can use virtual reality and augmented reality for enterprise use cases. So first is sa training. So this is one of the biggest and actually most impactful applications of VR. So this is a training platform that we created for Philippine Airlines. And so basically with VR, you can simulate real life aircraft, and instead of having the cabin crew train with the very expensive aircraft, which sometimes nahirapan din sila schedule, they can just use the VR application anytime and train there. So as you can see, there's instructions, detailed instructions, and it can train them on how to operate different parts of the aircraft. Ayun. So that's virtual reality for training. So this is the platform we created, Vectus. So it's a training platform that helps airlines train their cabin crew in a safer, more efficient, and more effective way with virtual reality. So it's actually a first in Asia. So it's already being used by Philippine Airlines. And so why is training really effective, more effective by using virtual reality? So first, of course, it's experiential learning. So aside from just having yung so as opposed to yung classroom setup na they read yung lessons and then presentations, PowerPoint presentation slides, they can actually experience yung actual na thing. So they can actually feel like they're inside the aircraft. So higher engagement rate, so definitely compared to traditional methods, and higher than your retention rate, which means that after let's say a month or after some time after the training, they retain more information by using immersive training. So it also reduces training and travel expenses. So definitely it's cheaper than by using VR training kasi uh, yun nga, they don't have to buy na yung mga expensive na training simulators na sometimes can cost millions. So by just replacing all of those in VR, it's going to be much more cheaper in the long run. It's also safer for high risk situations. For applications that has a very dangerous or high risk environment for let's say manufacturing plants, or let's say fire safety training. So those are kinds of things you can't just train for realistically in real life. So by simulating everything in VR, it's providing them a much safer risk-free environment. And of course, there's also digital assessment. So it's already in VR, it's already all digital. So in terms of the assessment, it's going to be more accurate then. And so and so they can perform the courses in VR, and there's detailed scenarios. And so there's another sample lang din. So this is for manufacturing naman. So as you can see, we can with VR you can simulate yung mga complex interactions very precisely. So yung pag-control ng mga equipment, so pag-move ng mga levers, so all of those you can really use you can really simulate in VR. And so these are just some of the sample projects that we've done. And so this is another sample for training for construction equipment naman. So as you can see, VR really lends itself to a great platform for training kasi nga yung level of simulation, level of detail that you can recreate in VR is really high. And so next dun sa example ko, next dun sa use cases ng VR and AR for enterprise is communication. So there's also a sample. This is actually an internal lang na demo. So is by using VR for communication. So especially now in the new normal, a lot of people can't really it's really for most people meeting physically is really not an option. So with VR, it provides people with still with an immersive platform to use for communication. So with VR, you can feel like you're still in the same room without the risk of transmitting some sort diseases or the virus. So and so this is a sample of of a multi-user communication platform that we've done. So instead of meeting in real life and doing instead of having a meeting in real life, you can actually use VR to meet like they're in the same meeting room and share information. So parang Zoom lang siya but in VR. So imagine with VR you can present much more complex na information and much more visualized. So kunwari, for example here, we can and we can all see itong complex na 3D model. So aside to just looking at a monitor, it's harder to visualize yung ganyang klaseng data. So this a demo of that same demo for communications. So yun nga, that's another reason then that Facebook is really investing heavily in VR kasi VR is really the future then of communication. Oops. So yun. So hindi ko lang nalagyan pala ng subtitles. But next dun sa enterprise applications is visualization. So there's one form of visualization. So I think pinakita ko kanina 360 videos. So it's one way of visualizing an environment. So in this case, we created a 360 tour of a corporate building. So in Nokia. So by using yung mga ganitong 360 tour, they can actually show to potential applicants or to potential if they have yung mga remote recruitment campaigns nila, for example sa provinces, they can show yung anong itsura ng premises nila, ng building nila without even if they're in a different place. And so that's 360 video. And the more immersive form of visualization is of course by creating all of them in 3D. Oops. So aside from spaces like buildings and real estate, one form of visualization that we've also done is visualization of clothes. So there's a sample. So this is an application we did for SM. So I think will also be big in the next few months with the new normal. Kasi nga, yun nga, people are now more resistive into shopping physically because there's a lot of risks na now. So I think this kinds of application wherein no contact approach, you can try out clothes without actually touching anything. I think this will be much more relevant today. Ayan. So yung kanina, those are clothes, but basically a lot of stuff we could really visualize with VR and AR. So yung kanina, that's more of a magic mirror and augmented reality. So this one naman is AR for mobile phone. So with mobile AR, we could visualize yung mga shades and mga different forms of accessories. So this is a great use case right now for e-commerce, especially because if you're purchasing something online, it's really hard to visualize what it would look like on you or what the final or the actual product would look like. So that's why we're also pushing now for this kinds of application, augmented reality for retail. And so because it gives you an option to showcase products without having or without buying the product immediately. And so you could visualize makeup, shades, furniture. So with this kind of visualization, naman, you can visualize a product and put it in your real in your environment. And you can even visualize food. And so these are more of the mga filters from Instagram. So they're also a form of mobile AR. So these ones naman are the ones we use for marketing. So basically mga just for fun applications sila. Pero compared to digital content kasi yung mga AR experiences, AR filters, and they provide a much more engaging they prove to be a more engaging form of content kasi people are now can interact with the content as opposed to just traditional digital content. And so more on examples of virtual reality for marketing. So aside from like serious business applications, we've also done mga games for marketing. So these are just some of the examples. So this is a coffee tour experience for great taste. Ayan. So okay. And so those are just some more applications of how we use virtual reality and augmented reality for business applications. And so that ends that part of the presentation. So now I think oras na ba? I think we still have enough time. And so now we're gonna move on to the demo part. So so if you're now really interested in getting into VR and AR, so how do you get started? So we're I'm gonna demo like a quick uh, exercise on how to develop a virtual reality app. So it's very basic. So it's a simple game that we're making. So okay, so I'm showing the demo on a different computer. So Luis, if you're there, can you switch the stream to the other one? And Give me a minute. So we're just setting up my other computer for the coding live coding demo. Alright, so I think alright, so just setting up for my other desktop. Ayan. Ayan. So I think I'm now live on my other desktop. And okay, my mic is still on the other device. So okay. Um Ten. So let's continue. So oops, sorry. And so now this part of the session is more in a live coding demo on how we can create a quick VR app. So we're actually using Unity. So as I said earlier, so this Unity's real-time game engine. So these are the tools that we use for to develop real-time 3D applications for VR. So you can also use Unity for creating regular games, 2D games, 3D games, but then it's also one of the most commonly used tools for developing VR apps. So so what is Unity? So Unity is a real-time 3D development platform. So let's move on. So this the software. So this Unity. So this is what we use for developing VR apps. So it's really it might look if you're seeing this in for the first time, it might look overwhelming, but it's actually fairly easy to get into. So you could actually probably get started with VR with Unity in like a day or two. So um, so for this demo, I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail. So I'm not assuming that there are people following along that are following along. So this would just be a quick demo on showing how easy and quick it is to create a VR app. So I won't go into much of the details. So I won't show like how to set up the VR devices. Like I won't show much a lot of details on the codes. But after the session, I'll provide the references and the materials and the codes. So if you want to try this on your own, you could. I'm probably not gonna show this, but I'm gonna head straight through what we'll be doing. So gotta edit this. Oops, sorry. Pero basically, ang gagawin natin for today is a simple Fruit Ninja type game. So, okay, so responsive na ng presentation. So basically, so we're gonna create, you can still see pa naman. So basically, we're gonna create a simple Fruit Ninja clone. So Fruit Ninja, everyone knows. So you have a sword. Ayan, so, ko lang to. So you have a sword, and you slash fruits. So so to create this game, I've enumerated some of the basic logic or basic steps for this game. So basically, in creating and prototyping games, so the simplest thing to do at the start, of course, is to write out in basic language, basically what it is you want to do, or what like the expected behavior of the game is. So for this demo, basically we're gonna have a timer for 30 seconds. So we're gonna have the game run for 30 seconds. So we're gonna create a fruit and throw it uh, upwards and towards the player every zero point 0.5 seconds. So in Fruit Ninja, diba, there's a spawner that spawns fruits. And when you slice the fruit, okay, sorry. Okay, so wag niyo pala intindihin to. So this is an old less pala. So, hindi siya masyado nag-reflect ng gagawin natin ngayon. So basically, ang gagawin natin, simple fruit ninja clone. So basically with VR, hawak-hawak natin yung sword or katana, and we're gonna be slashing fruits. But instead of fruits, i-slash natin are donuts. So I'm just gonna be importing, I have some models prepared. So I'll import them. Donut models. And so I have some pre-made models now, so 3D models that we'll be using. So to import models and other resources, you can just drag and drop to the project folder. So ito yan. So our project folder at the bottom. So nandito basically lahat ng files that we'll be using for the project. And so yung first is I have a katana. So it's basically a katana. And oops. So as you can see, it's a sword. So we'll be using that to slice some fruits. And I have some donuts. Oops. And oops, medyo malakas. I have some donuts that we'll be slicing. And so for this exercise, we're actually gonna be using, I'm using the Oculus Quest. So yun yung pinakita ko kanina. So the Oculus Quest is a standalone VR device, pero what's great about it is you can also use it on the PC. So with the Oculus Quest connected on my PC, I can just press run or play and view it on my screen. So how do I, so here's an empty Unity project. So to use it for VR, I'm actually using now the Oculus VR prefabs. And so if you're using different devices, you can actually use you might use different SDKs or different plugins. So for Steam VR or for HTC Vive, you may use the Steam VR SDK. But for now, we're using the Oculus VR SDK or the Oculus Integration SDK because I'm using the Oculus Quest. So basically, so supposedly when I add this, I should be able to run the device, to run the experience on my VR headset. So give me a second, I'll just set up my VR headset. Oops. Okay. I already set it up earlier, pero nalobat yata siya. So, set detected now. There. Okay, Oculus Link. Shit. Gulo ko siya. Okay, so I'm gonna restart Oculus Link enable. Okay. Okay, so now I'm just having some trouble setting up the device. So please bear with me for a few for a moment. Okay. Okay, close up, enable. Let's run. Okay, I'm gonna connect my VR headset. Okay, and enable Oculus Link. Hello? Okay. Okay, so let's just start. And so this is the hard thing about doing live. So when you're doing a technical demo, so please bear with me, sorry. Okay, set up, confirm guardian, quit, okay. Okay, so let's connect the, okay, please work this time. Okay, I think it's working. Okay, I think it's working. Okay, so if you're still there, so hopefully there's still people here. So thanks for sticking. So if I press play, so it should run on my VR headset. So now I can see it. And so I can now look around in the environment. So after I put in the Oculus rig, so as you can see, I can now use the headset to look around. So, but obviously the scene is still empty. Uh, and there's no object in my controller. So I'm just gonna put controller prefabs here. So I can see my controller as well. So, okay, and here, left. Okay, so if I run this, I should see my hands as well. Yes, okay. I think my left controller is low bat. Okay, so my left controller battery is low, so I only have my right controller now. Okay, so but it's okay because we're just gonna create a simple Fruit Ninja game, so I can just use one controller to hold the katana. And so we're just so by adding this camera rig, which is built in with the Oculus SDK, so you can actually download that on the asset store. So Unity has this asset store where you can explore like a lot of free and paid assets. So if you're just starting out in Unity development, there's a lot of resources here that you can use to really create amazing prototypes. So I already added it here. So this is the Oculus integration SDK, and I added the OVR camera rig, which lets us use the Oculus VR headset and Unity. So you can see it there. So okay, so we're gonna this is not fancy. We're just gonna add a plane to set as our floor. So I'm gonna set it as I'm gonna show the magnifier. Oops. Okay. And so I'm gonna set it to 0, 0, 0. Okay. Okay. How do I escape the magnifier? And so okay, so I just added a plane so we could have a ground. So nothing fancy. So next, and so I'm here in the environment, so you can see supposedly you can see the floor. And so I could see, oops, and so I started out at the center of the scene, so my head is actually on the floor. So I'm just gonna fix that real quick. So the OVR rig, and so the tracking is on the eye level, but it should be floor level. So and so if I play again, there. So I'm now so I can see the plane on the floor, so it's level on the floor. So my eye is on my actual eye level. So next, I'm gonna use this katana model that I imported. So let's use a mesh, OBJ. So I'm gonna use this one. So in VR, basically we have these three objects. So the camera rig, the camera rig is basically a rig or a combination of this. There's a lot of objects here, but basically the most important here are three things. So the left hand anchor, which tracks your left hand or the left controller, which is low bat for me. The right hand anchor, which is the right controller, which represents your right hand, and the VR headset. So the VR headset is actually represented by three objects: the left eye, the right eye. But to detect the center or the tracking of the headset, we use the center eye anchor. So this is the center of the headset. So to add an object and to be able to hold the object, so we want to hold the katana. So I'm just gonna add this to my right hand. Oops, you can see it's so big, so I'm just gonna scale it down. So actually, I might use the prefab on mobile. Okay, there. So I'm gonna scale it down. Scale it down. Okay. I'm gonna scale it down because that's too big. Oops. So again, if you're a beginner in Unity, apologies if I won't go, if I won't explain like each step I'm doing. I just want to show how quick it is to make a game. But if you want more details, we'll be definitely having more in-depth sessions in the future at VR Philippines. We're planning on creating some more online workshops. So, but for now, and I'm just gonna show a quick way to create a simple VR game. So there. So just for a reference, so we have our controller here. So and so I think is the size good enough? Sorry. And so I think the size is good, the scale is good in regards to the controller. So I'm just gonna position it and rotate it. So there. So let's see. So I just added it as a child of this right hand anchor, which means that every time I move the controller, the katana model will also move with me. There. So as you can see, it feels like I'm holding the katana, but obviously there's something wrong here, so it's not completely aligned. So my controller is it's not aligned with the hilt of the sword, the handle of the sword. So I'm just gonna rotate the sword a bit more to align it with my controller, so it feels more that I'm holding it. Okay, so I'm aligning it to the handle of the controller. Here, there. So if I press play, there. So it's more aligned with the sword. So there's Should probably move it down more so my hand is closer to the hilt of the sword. There. There. I think that's okay. I'm just gonna scale it down a little bit more. There. There. So I think it's perfect. So now I'm just gonna hide the controller model because and it's just weird looking at that. And but basically you can now see me holding the sword. So I'm gonna delete this controller model. And so with the katana there now, I'll just adjust its collider. So what's here? So nothing. So I'm just gonna be adjusting its collider. So here. So basically the collider is the boundaries on which it detects other objects passing through. So if we're gonna add the fruits or the donuts that we're gonna be slashing, so basically this is the hitbox or the boundaries in which it will detect any object that it collides with. So that's what it's a collider. So the reason that it's a box and not like in the same shape of the sword, it's just computationally more efficient to just have a simple shape for the collider. And so, but we could do a much more complex collider. But for this purpose, we can just use a box. So there. So I now have a sword. I now have the ground. Oops, I disabled the ground there. So next, I want to spawn the. I want to spawn. Uh, I want to spawn the fruits or the donuts for our game. So I have the donut model here. Model. So donut hole. And so it's a little bit big. So it's very big. So I'm gonna scale it down. Probably this size. So it might be good to make it a little bit bigger so it's not that hard to hit. And I'm gonna put it okay, and put it in the center. Okay, oops, that's good. And so now I'm gonna make this donut a prefab. So because once I run the game, I want like multiple donuts spawning at the same time. So I just can't leave this object there. So I'm gonna save it as a prefab, and then we're gonna be spawning or instantiating this object in real time. So to do that, I'm gonna make an empty object that will act as my spawner. So this will be my donut spawner, and I'm gonna put it here. So basically, this is the object that will grow or that will create my donut. So now to add behavior to our objects, we're gonna create a script. So a script is also a component in Unity. So to create a new script, I'll just add a component and type the name of my script. So I'm gonna name it also donut spawner. Okay, so okay, so it's still compiling, so it's a bit my computer's a bit slow. Okay, so and I'm gonna open the script that I created. So don't upgrade. And so it's now there. So it took a while to appear. But I now have the script on this object, and now we're gonna add behavior to this object. So basically, we want this empty object. So it has nothing but just transform. So we want this thing to create our donuts or to spawn our donuts. So that's the logic that we'll be creating. Okay, so where's my script? Okay, so oops, sorry. Gonna open my script. So we're gonna add a simple behavior to this object, to this donut spawner. Okay, so this is a generic script for C sharp. So Unity uses C sharp to create the logic for and behavior for its first object. So when you create a new script, it inherits a mono behavior, which is like the a basic object script for Unity objects, and it has this start and update component. So basically, with the start function, everything that you put in here will run when you start the program. And within the update function, it is called once per frame. So if our game runs on 60 frames per second, it will the functions that you put here will run 60 times a second or once per frame. So now what I want to do is I want to spawn a fruit. So I'm gonna create a function that's called spawn donut I mean. And then basically in this function we'll be instantiating our donut model. So to find the donut model, we need to create a reference for it. So I'll add a serialized field, and we'll add the variable for the donut, which is we'll be getting the game object for the donut, or the prefab for the donut. So if you put a serialized field in this in the variable, you can see it show up in the editor. So okay. So as you can see, nagkaroon ng placement for a reference here in the editor. So I can now add the donut prefab that I created earlier, this donut tool, and put it on my script. Okay, that is loading. So if you have any questions, that just put it as a comment on the screen. There. So there's now a slot here for a game object because I defined my variables a game object and I added a serialized field, which means it will show up here in the editor. So I'll just drag my donut object and add it here in my script. So now I can refer to it in my script. So basically, if I call this, it will call the donut prefab. So now what I want to do when I call this function is instantiate donut prefab, and oops, and I want it to transform that position, and I want it to be instantiated in the same position as the donut spawner. So it should be created at this point. So that's why I'm calling the position of this object. So transform that position, and I want it to retain its rotation. So return that identity. Okay. Okay. So whenever I call spawn donut, it should create a new donut. So let's try calling this function by putting it in the start function. So when I run this, when I run the program, okay, why does it take a load? Why does it take a while to load? Okay. Okay, so when I run my game, so it should now create or spawn, instantiate a donut there. So yeah, so as you can see, it created the donut there, but it's floating because I didn't add any physics to the object. So I'll now open my donut prefab and then I'm gonna edit it. So I'll just be adding a rigid body here, a rigid body, which adds physics properties. So it will now be affected by gravity since there's this use gravity field here. I'm gonna add a collider. Just gonna use another standard box collider so that it can detect itself colliding with other environments such as the floor and the sword. Okay, so okay, so when I run this, it should create a donut and it should fall on the floor There. Okay, so I'm gonna run it again because we didn't see it. Okay, so when I run my game, and so it's already on the floor, so my PC is a bit slow, so you can see it on the Veer headset. But we basically we want to do that multiple times throughout our game. So we want to create multiple donuts at an interval. So we could put it in the update. So with update, it calls this every frame, but we want to be able to control how often we call or how often we spawn the donut. And with update, we can control that because with this function, it's being called once per frame. So we're just gonna be using invoke. So with invoke repeating. So basically, this function means that we can call the spawn donut function and do this every. So what's the parameters here? I forgot. So let me Google this a bit quick. Invoke repeating. Okay, float time. So we want it to start immediately and repeat rate. So we want it to repeat, let's say every 0. So basically every 200 milliseconds or 5 times a second. So let's see. And so now you can see and now you can see infinite donuts spawning there. So it's just piling up there. There. So as you can see, it just creates a new donut every 1/5 of a second. So it's getting slower and slower because my PC can't handle this much donut. So what we're gonna do just to optimize this a bit quicker is we want to destroy the donut we spawned after a few seconds. So destroy. Uh, we want to destroy it after 2 seconds. Let's say. This. So yeah, so that we won't have a million donuts all uh, existing in our scene. So if I run this, and so I have new donuts. Oops, what happened? Okay, so I should set a reference for the donut we instantiated. So spawn donut. And that's what I'm gonna destroy, so that it won't destroy everything that it's spawning. And there, so you can see donuts are being created, but there's a limited amount of donuts, so it's not creating and creating. So some of the donuts, after a while, it gets destroyed, and so it's a bit more optimized. So now, and so now it's falling on the floor, but we want it basically to throw it to the player so we can slash it. So I'm gonna add some code to add force to our object. So basically, we want to add a force so that we can throw it towards the player. So, and I'll probably add right here, and I'm gonna make it maybe 5 seconds, so the donut will have a longer life. So basically, after we spawn the donut, we want to add a force to it, and to add a force, we need to use the donut's rigid body. So that is the rigid body component that we added earlier. So where's that? So the donut, we want to get the rigid body component. So basically this component adds the physics properties of the object. So we want to get the component rigid body so that we could use the add force method. So add force, so sorry, I just want to make sure that parameters are correct. Okay, so force, so vector, so we're gonna throw it forward. So basically, the direction will be transformed that forward. So that is a direction, and we want to multiply it by a force. So let's say 800 units of force. Okay. There. So it throws it, but it throws it on the opposite direction, as you can see. So we have to rotate the spawner so that it points it at me, and I can slash the objects. Okay. So let's rotate it by 180 degrees so that it's pointing at me. There. So it's pointing at me, and I'm gonna angle it a bit upwards. There. So there's a bit of an airtime for the donut. So let's see. Okay, so now it's throwing it at me, but it's the force is a bit strong, so it throws it so high that I can't reach that. So we're just gonna edit some of the parameters of the physics. So we're just gonna make this half the force, and I'm probably gonna okay, probably gonna lower the spawner, and then make it look at a 45-degree angle. So let's see what kind of change that would make. Okay, so the force is a bit strong, so I think I'm gonna move it a bit back and still reduce the force. Okay, oops. So let's move it a bit backwards still. Okay, and still reduce the force, so maybe just 250 units of force. Okay, so oops. So now and now the force is not enough, so I'm just gonna increase it again. And this is getting slower. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it back to maybe 350 or maybe 400. Let's see. Maybe I moved that back too much. Oh, there. So we're getting closer, but I think I should just decrease the force a little so I could reach the donuts over there. So you can see I can now reach it, but it's still a bit high. Okay, so can I move this? Okay, so let's just make it, let's say 320. So hopefully that makes it just right. Okay, let's move it there, and let's see. So hopefully it's now. Oops, what happened? So your control. Okay. there. So okay, it's a little bit low. So I think the magic number is around 360. So we're going a bit of trial and error here. But yeah, I think now would be a perfect. Okay, so hopefully this is so hopefully we get it better this time. Okay, so I think this is oops, just hit my monitor. So I think this is a good enough range. So I can now okay, so I can now slice them. Oops. Unluckily I can't shoot my sword right through the hole. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add some trigger. So whenever I hit the donut, it should, oops, when I hit the donut, it should break apart in two pieces. And also maybe we're gonna add some variety in the spawner because it looks a bit boring that it just every each and every one of the donut just follows the same direction. So we're gonna first we'll just add some randomization. Okay. Okay, so how do we add some randomization? So basically, what's controlling the throw direction is just this transform. So we're gonna randomize this. So every time we spawn a donut, we're gonna change the rotation of this. So rotation there. So basically, we're gonna rotate this. Uh, so it's now at 180, and no not that. Okay, I'm changing the local rotation. So uh, okay, so every time I spawn a donut, I'm gonna change up the rotation. So transform uh, that local Euler angles. So this is how we change the rotation in degrees. It's equals to new vector 3. So we're just making a new 3D value. So new vector 3, and we want to change. We only want to change the y value, the local y value. So uh, I'm gonna retain the x value. So transform that local Euler angles that x that's z, and with the y we're gonna add a randomizer. So random that range we're gonna add a negative, maybe negative 15 to a positive 15 value. So basically we're gonna rotate that, we're gonna add an angle between negative 15 to 15 so that it could rotate randomly while throwing, so that there's a lot more variety. Okay, so now you see there's yeah, so it's not just throwing in one direction. No, it's throwing just one direction. Okay, so there's something wrong I did here. So I'm adding to the current value. So it's the default value is moving. So I'm just gonna make it one. Okay, so I'm just gonna get the first value. So start. So float default local y angle is equals to transform that local Euler angles that y there, and that's what we're gonna add to, so that we still have our center. So because here we're adding to the current value, so our center angle keeps on moving. The name default does not exist in current angle. So float. Oops, sorry. So I should move this. So I should define this outside and just initialize it at the start. Okay. Okay. So let's see. So, okay, let's run it. Okay, so it's now going back again. So what's wrong did I do now? Okay, so let's go back. So transform the local Euler angles that y. Hmm. What did I do wrong? So it's showing backwards because okay, so where's my donut spawner? So let's go back to the scene. Okay, I'm just gonna set it manually. There. So yeah, there. So it's now okay. It's now throwing it with more variety. So there's donuts on my left, there's donuts on my right. So basically, donuts are being thrown everywhere. So it's a bit more difficult now. So I might just decrease the angle a bit because it's too far away, and I'm just sitting in my chair, so it's hard to hit those at the extreme sides. So I'm just gonna put this at maybe negative 10 to 10. So it's a bit more narrower range. So okay, so I think I spent more than 20 minutes now, so it's not. But we're just gonna finish this real quick. So we're just gonna add detection to the. We're just basically gonna detect when we hit a donut. So donut. Okay. So we go to our donut prefab, and we're just gonna add a script. So donut. So a donut object. Okay. So where's my donut? Okay, so let's edit the donut object. So basically, when okay, sorry, I'm not sure again. So sorry, I don't always memorize the. So let's check the reference just to be sure. So on collision, enter. Okay, collision. Okay, so basically, if we detect a collision from the so how do we know if it's the sword colliding? So we'll add a where's the sword object? Also add a sword script here. So we have a sword component. So basically, we will check if the object hitting it has a sword component. So we will know if the object hitting it is a sword. So for now, when it is hit by a sword, we'll print a debug log. So I'm hit. So let's just test it. Oops. Hit component. That sword. And apologies for my slow PC. Gonna upgrade it soon. Okay, so basically when I hit the donut, I should see a print here. So let's try hitting it. Oops. Okay. And so every time I hit the donut, okay. Every time I hit the donut, okay, okay. Okay, so it prints a debug log. So let's collapse it there. So it gives a debug log so that we know that a donut is hit. So now what we just want to do now is to slice it. So where's the donut? So basically, that's just a simple way. So okay, where's the split donut? Okay, donut. So basically, we just want to when we hit the donut, we're gonna destroy it and spawn these two components, the left and right donuts. Okay, so with the donut prefab, we're gonna add two references for the left and right prefab. So realize field, game object. Uh, sorry. Okay. So both these components we want to add. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so these aren't yet. So these aren't prefabs yet. So I'm just gonna add it to my scene and save it as a prefab. Oops. So they're a bit big. So I'm just gonna scale it the same size as my donut. So, so basically 1 1 1. Is it the same size now? I think so. So remove it from the prefab, and I want to save this each of this as a prefab. So I'm read on prefab. Okay, so I'm gonna delete it now. Then I'm gonna add a rigid body to both of them and a collider. And to the right one, box collider. Okay, so now I just need to add references to my donuts. So is there an error here? Okay, so I didn't serialize fill the right one. Okay, so basically when it's hit, we want to destroy this object, destroy this. But before doing so, we want to instantiate the donut's slices. So it appears that that's being sliced. But in reality, it's just spawning two separate sliced prefabs. Transform that position and quaternion that identity. Okay, then just another one. Okay. All right. Instantiate, so we're instantiating both donuts and then destroying the original one. Okay, so let's just wait for the script to compile. Position. Okay, so I have some typos. I'm sorry. Okay. Donut slice. Okay, another typo. Donut slice right prefab. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna add the left and right donuts. Where's it? Where's the script? Okay, I'll add the left donut. Cooperate with me, please. And the right donut. Okay, so uh, okay, so let's test it out. Um, okay, I just want to add a destroy as well. So we'll just visualize the sliced donut, but we also want to destroy it after a while. So donut left, spawned, donut left, slice. Okay, and the right slice. And we want to destroy this too after, let's say, a second or two. And the right one. Okay. Okay, but before we call the destroy. Okay, so make sure that they're both called. Okay, so let's check it now. Okay, so when I hit the donut, it should now be split into two. Okay, there. Oops. So it spawns the two donuts, but it still retains the original one. So there's something wrong. But yeah, you can see both slices being spawned. Huh, 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 huh. Oops. Okay. So what's wrong? Okay, so let's just check. There's something wrong with my destroy. So it doesn't destroy. Okay, so destroy this. It just destroys the script, the donut script. So I want to destroy the game object. So okay, so this should be this should work better now. Okay, so every time I hit the donut, okay. So it's not pretty, but it's just a simple way of doing that thing. Okay, so a better solution, like the best solution for this is to have a script that actually slices the mesh so that every direction you sliced could slice the mesh in the appropriate direction. But for now, this is just a simple way. So okay, so this I think we'll stop here. But just to make this a full game, obviously what's just lacking is a timer and a score counter. So and after that we have a game. So okay, uh, okay. So that's it. So I took up I think I took up a lot way more than 20 minutes. Supposedly that quick demo supposed to last 20 minutes, but it's my first time. I think it's my first time hosting an online workshop, so it took a bit more time. So there you go. Um, I think I'll stop there. So if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me personally. So I'm gonna show up my contact details again. So if you want to know more about me, you could check out my website, off of the that world. So here, and you can check out my website, and you can know more about me, and you can there you can contact me here. So you can also here's how you can reach out to me. So you can email me, or you can also add me on Facebook with my name. So I think that's where I'll end it, Luis.
All right, thank you so much, Dov. So that was very informative. And aside from sharing to us what VR and AR is all about and how it looks like in the real world, um, uh, you also showed us how, give us an idea of how it works when you're developing. What again is the software that you're using, Dov?
We use Unity. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the Unity real-time engine.
Mm-hmm. And for everyone who is considering, starting exploring this new technology, um, what's like the minimum specs for you to be able to run Unity and maybe do a simulation as well?
As I said, Unity is not really exclusive to VR. So if you want to get started in VR but don't have a lot to invest in a headset, you could just start learning Unity development with it actually runs well on even a bit probably 5 to 6 year old, 5 to even 8 year old PC. So you have no problem running Unity on an older device. So if
Mhm.
you don't have resources yet to develop one of your headsets, so you can start learning by just by just installing Unity and creating simpler games. So, for
Yeah, well, I
example,
think.
if you want to recreate this like Fruit Ninja or Donut Ninja demo I did, you could just recreate it using a point and click version if you don't have a VR headset.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Thank you so much for also letting us know. Now you don't really have to jump into VR immediately, and I think how do you say it? Um, Learning the fundamentals is very important, and to start with, you have to also learn how to develop like a 2D game or maybe a 3D game that doesn't really need a VR headset. And just like what Toph said, you can check VRPH on their Facebook. They have a group and they have a community page as well, so you can join both. So that once they announce their workshops and other sessions, you can be part of that, and that I think would be very helpful for anyone who's trying to learn game development. And I'm gonna say this again. VRPH is a very collaborative community. You know, if you have questions about game development, I think it's one of the best places you can ask your questions, and people there would definitely be more than helpful in showing you around the world of game development. Yeah. So just a reminder to everyone as well, for everyone who are still listening, this is the end of our design and development month for July. This is our last session. Thank you so much, Stoff, for being part of this project. And for everyone who registered, we will send you a newsletter that will summarize all the sessions that we've had in the past. You know, just for you to be able to look back and see or watch the videos on our YouTube channel. And I'm also developing the website techpage.org. So if you visit the website, all you see there is my face. So we'll try to
Yeah,
find
I saw
to
your face.
yeah, it's just my face. So at the moment, there's nothing really there. It just provides you the links to all our social media sites, including Facebook and YouTube. But soon enough, maybe over the weekend, I'll try to find a way to add some links there, some important information, so that if you go to techph.org, you'll have instant access to the links that will bring you to the right content. If you're learning data science, if you're learning AI, and just recently, just a while ago, computer vision, then you'll be redirected to the YouTube video that will give you a better understanding of what computer vision is. And again, we will try our best to find more speakers who will talk uh, about the details, the nitty gritty about the development, game development. Maybe Toff can talk about Unity in the future, or someone in the VRPH community. Yeah, and it's always gonna be free, guys. So please share and invite your friends to like or follow our page. And for next week, I'd like to invite you to our first sessions on further into design. So we have product design, gamification, and product design mindset. So that will happen first 2 weeks of July, all on a Saturday. And first Friday of July, we also have introduction to Angular JS as part of our design and development extended session for July. Um, if you click the link on the description of the video, you'll be directed to the registration page. So please leave a comment there on what you want to learn in the future, and we'll definitely try our best to find the perfect speaker for that. So yeah, so Toph, do you have any invitations or anything you want to add?
None for now. So, yeah, probably join the VRPH community on Facebook. You can check out our page. So, hopefully, we'll be setting up more online events next month. And yeah, don't forget to listen more to the next TechPH sessions. So,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
yeah, thank you too, Toph. This really means a lot for not only for me but for everyone who's trying to find a way to learn new technology during this period. And as our one of our speakers mentioned, tech is the most resilient. It is becoming one of the most resilient roles or job in the Philippines right now. So um, that this is the time for you to maybe reskill yourselves. So if you for example are a graduate of computer science or IT or any other tech related course, and you're doing something else right now, I think this is the perfect time to maybe to find a way that you can come back to tech, because as what I'm seeing, technology is really surviving this pandemic, and I think it's definitely the future. And like what Toff said, for VR naman, VR is the final computing platform. Did I quote you correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna use that a lot because I really like that quote. I really believe in that as well. So VR is gonna be the future of everything. So guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And the video will be on our Facebook page until the end of time, and also in our YouTube channel. So you can always just like that, share it to your friends. And if, for example, you've heard someone who'd like to learn VR, then you can always redirect them to this to our community page, techph.org, and show them the video that once upon a time we did a session with Toph. All right. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. And again, this session is powered by recruitday.com. We'll provide some links. I'll provide some links in the comment section as well. So if you're looking for a new opportunity, or if you know someone who is, then you can definitely visit recruitday.com and you can refer your friends to jobs. And also we have boot camps and community events there. So part of that is techph.org. So thank you so much, guys, for the time. Thank you so much, Toph, and see you again next
Sure.
time.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye. Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Toph. Good night, Toph.